So what is going on, guys? I am BlackOpsAmazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel where today what I wanted to do is talk about what I think may be the best map for storyline we've ever seen in zombies. It's something I haven't really thought or spoken about before, because usually when you think of something that's great in zombies, whether it be a story, Easter egg, characters, usually associate it to a singular map, and that map is also considered one of the best. However, a map that I don't think is in a lot of people's top 5s, top 7, 8, even 10, maybe we could go that far, and I am talking about Alpha Omega. It just feels now that since it released, all the way back in 2019, here we are now almost 3 years later since it came out in July, and even during its release period, I feel like it was a map that just passed us. It came, we played it, and then it went. The map after was T.E.D.D. Totem. That was the ending to the Ether storyline, so that got all of the attention. And then the map before this was Ancient Evil. That was also our final map for the Chaos story. Because Alpha Omega was in between those two, I just feel like it's almost the forgotten map of Black Ops 4. I'm definitely not saying I think overall the map is the best. Maybe some people do. But one thing that should be so much more appreciated was the story that was told. This might be the best map in COD Zombies for storyline, for how many different characters were involved, for how many endings to timelines we got, for how many conclusions for different parts of a story that had been going on since, I would say, Black Ops 2. This map is severely underrated for the story that was told, and let me tell you why. So the first thing is Ultimus and Primus. This is the first and only map we have ever been able to play as both the Ultimus characters and the Primus characters, Richtof and Takeo, Nikolai and Dempsey. We saw them together in the classified cutscene. They're also together in the cutscene in T.E.D.D. Totem, but both sets of characters aren't playable on any other map besides on this one. A very cool feature that I've been wanting for a long time, because this allowed Treyarch to expand on questions that we've been asking for a long time. How Primus and Ultimus were connected through hive minds. But that doesn't even touch the tip of it. One of my other favourite things about this map was the return of T.E.D., and you will notice a couple of things in this map link nicely back to Black Ops 2, because the first time we saw T.E.D. was Transit. For the longest time, before we had the Canorium, we'd all been wondering, where exactly did T.E.D. come from? Why was he in the state that he was? Who created him? What happened to him after Transit? And for a lot of this, even though, as I just mentioned, some of it was answered in the Canorium, and I suppose you could say the Zombies comics, we saw multiple outcomes. But with T.E.D.'s return in Alpha, we discovered that he was made by Broken Arrow. His purpose was to drive Broken Arrow employees around the Hanford site. The reason why he has his own personality is because someone programmed him with emotions. The version of T.E.D. we saw was a prototype. His inappropriate behaviour was supposed to be fixed before he went out, but obviously that wasn't the case. And then, all of a sudden, he ends up in Alpha Omega, no longer as a bus driver, but as a lounge attendant. But still, that wasn't all. This map was also the first time where Dr. Monty's true form was revealed. In the ending cutscene, we see he reveals himself, his apothecary form, and he goes on to kill a character that we've had in the game since World at War, the very beginning of Zombies back in 2008, 2009, Dr. Maxis. To witness his death after 10 years, a prominent character, although always been in the background, we'd always hear his voice now and again. And I remember seeing that scene and thinking, that has got to be one of the bloodiest endings to a character, not only in Call of Duty history, but in video game history. I'm pretty sure for that reason, when I uploaded that cutscene, it got age restricted, so I'm probably not going to do it on this video. Maybe we'll have to blur that part out. We did know before this what Dr. Monty really was, but to finally see his reveal is just another conclusion this map brought us, but it still doesn't stop. Peter McCain. Again, we can link that back to World at War, Shin Onuma. When we saw him hanging from his parachute after jumping out of a plane, we got a little bit more about his story in Garad Karovi. We learned how he got there, but I remember from that period, from 2008 up until Garad Karovi's release, we knew virtually nothing about this mysterious hanging man. There were so many theories from us as to what happened to him. Was he hung by the people that worked at Shin Onuma? Did he intentionally do this himself because otherwise he would have died to the zombies? Or was it an accident, which it turned out it was? But in Alpha Omega, we come to learn that Peter McCain is trapped inside of an ADAM. And this happened after almost 20 years of him being left hanging in Shin Onuma. It was at the request of Cornelius Purnell, who we'll talk about in just a second, where he told Paxton Ridge, who also, I must remind you, is the fourth missing unknown Marine from Verrucht. Yet another mystery we'd been wondering about for such a long time. We knew the identities of 3 of the Marines in Verrucht. Those were Dempsey, John Banana, and Smokey, but there was a 4th playable character who we had no idea who that was. And we finally learnt that in Alpha Omega. It is Paxton Ridge. It was him that was sent to Shinonuma to recover Peter McCain's dead body, and then Purnell, along with his assistant Dr. Hale, resurrected Peter McCain using the elemental shard, and that's when we learned Peter started having visions of giant monsters. The Great War. A few weeks later, after he started to recover, Peter then began to work for Broken Arrow, where eventually he came to terms with what kind of experiments Broken Arrow were doing, and so being the good man he was, tried to out Purnell. However, Purnell had Peter arrested, which eventually, after a few more events, led to Peter becoming trapped inside of the ADAM robots. If you do the Easter egg in this map, eventually you free him. Peter and Dempsey are finally reunited. They say their goodbyes, but it was so nice to see a conclusion to his story after 10 years of wondering. As I just briefly mentioned in that small segment, Cornelius Purnell, he is Avogadro, another character or enemy we first saw back in Black Ops 2's Transit. Up until this map, we didn't know who he was. We didn't know his identity. All we knew was it had something to do with Broken Arrow, and the story takes place in Nuketown with the APD, which is the American Pyramid device. Purnell decided to experiment on himself with his assistant. He placed himself inside of the APD, pulled an electrical current from the elemental shard, where one day one of the experiments was too much. Purnell ended up drawing too much power, which caused the facility to shut down, sending all of the electrical current through Purnell's body, and that turned him into Avogadro. It was this map that told us the background on his creation, and obviously he's also the boss fight as well. And the final big plot we learnt about in Alpha Omega, although there are a few other smaller things, but this one was my personal favourite, and that was to do with the Pentagon thief, his death. He, which you may or may not know, was killed in Alpha Omega. We all know that the Pentagon thief is Yuri from Ascension. He was sent to the Pentagon by Samantha to stop the characters. However, once the outbreak there was contained, Yuri was captured. He was arrested. He was given the codename Ident K-642. Funnily enough, he was actually chosen to be the first candidate for the second phase of Project MK Alpha. That was something else that Broken Arrow were doing, which was also part of the reason why the APD pyramid was made. It was an interrogation tool. Anyway, the Pentagon thief was transferred to Alpha Omega, where Purnell interrogated him, which eventually led to his death. Death by electrocution. We also learned more information to do with our victors' characters. Russman, his involvement with Broken Arrow. Malton, he was trapped in the bunker in the original Nuketown. There is story information here to do with the ADAM robots. There is so much in this map. It wraps up so many older ties, along with giving us a few new questions. Thinking back on it now, it is such an underrated map when it comes to the story. I said in my Zombie Awards video I did the other day that either Alpha Omega or Blood of the Dead have the best story, but just because of how many different plots were told in this map, it's just so underrated. So there we go. Do you agree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, drop a like rating. My voice is starting to go now. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.